To open officially the meeting of the East Valley Institute of Technology, number 401, by asking Shelley Boggs, since I can see her, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I do have a question. If I had led the Pledge of Allegiance from here, would there have been a delay between what I'm saying and what you're saying?
No.
No.
Oh,
No,
so I
there
could
would
have
not.
done it. Okay, thank you.
Not
That
unless
brings
you're
us
on the
to-
moon or Mars.
Okay, I'm not. That brings us to agenda item number 3, presentations and recognitions. And I'd like to call on Dr. Wilson to identify the presenters.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, it's a real honor each and every month for us to take the opportunity to recognize not only our students of the month, but we also take the time to recognize their parents, and in many ways, the instructors that work so hard for them to have the success that they have here. I'd like to mix it up a little bit. I don't know if we mix it up much anymore, and start with the Power Road campus, and I'll introduce the principal, Mr. Casaro, who will take it from there. Mr. Casaro.
Good evening, everyone. Board members, members of the audience. I would like to start off first with introducing our AM Student of the Month. I'm going to name the teacher, and she's going to come and tell you a few words about the student. So our AM Student of the Month is nominated by Miss Amber Tamari, who is one of our second-year vet teachers.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amber Tamori. I am a second-year vet assistant instructor over at our Power campus. Tonight I am here because I nominated Miss Haley Kiker as Student of the Month. She's an awesome student. She's very motivated. She's very engaged. She's very thorough when she completes all of her assignments, and she's overall just a great kid to have in my classroom. The big reason, though, why I wanted to nominate her for this is to give her the recognition that she deserves for her hard work at her externship site. So my students started their externships about 4 weeks ago. She was assigned a really busy small animal practice, which means dogs and cats. We usually encourage all of our clinics to actually interview our students. But with COVID, we know that that's not happening all the time. But we still left it up to the intern or the extern sites. And they actually did want to do an interview, the site that Haley was at. So I could tell once Haley was assigned her site, she was very nervous because she was one of her only peers that actually had to have that in-person interview. And her site was very particular about the type of student they were looking for. So they wanted a student who was really hardworking, really engaged, a go-getter, somebody who was going to just jump in and help whenever needed. So Haley was super nervous. She went out there, she had her interview, and she absolutely killed it. She did great. They actually asked her to start a week earlier than her peers because they were so impressed. And Haley went out and she started a week earlier, knowing that starting a week earlier, that didn't mean that those hours counted towards her graduation. She just did it because she was so excited and she wanted to volunteer. So I was super proud of her. She was so excited. Now, 2 weeks later, she's only been at her externship for 2 weeks at that point. She actually got offered a job as a vet assistant. So she hasn't even graduated our program yet. And she got offered a position, super excited, of course she accepted. Now she's working 30 to almost 40 hours a week now, I understand, and she still is an A in my class. Wow. So she deserves some great recognition. It's so cool to see these kids go out there and like chase their dreams and then actually just achieve them and you know, just be spectacular out there. So that is why I nominated Miss Haley, and she definitely deserves the Student of the Month.
Hi, I'm Haley. Hi, Haley.
Hello, Haley.
Do any board members have any questions for Haley?
You do.
I always do, but I'll let someone else ask.
I would like to know what is the most important thing going forward that you think you've learned?
The most important
That
thing.
put you on the spot.
probably the most important thing I've learned is client relationship, making sure they're happy with our performance and they feel like their baby is safe in our hands. Making sure everything is put out there,
Good.
all the information's ready for them.
Excellent.
Good answer.
How many animals do you have?
Personally,
Yes.
a couple.
What's a couple?
I've got a dog, couple fish, a bearded dragon, and a bird.
Okay. So a few. Okay.
Who's in the audience with you?
My mom and dad.
Hi, Mom and Dad. So why EVIT?
Let's see. 10th grade, I was at Highland High School. Just saw some students running around in EVIT scrubs. I'm like, what is this? I didn't know. So, and then I transferred to Campo Verde High School the next year. And then I finally learned what EVIT was. And I applied right away. I always wanted to be in the medical field. I didn't know, what type and who I was going to be helping. So it definitely helped shape my career.
Excellent. What one thing do you think we need to know to serve you better? That's a big one.
Yeah, that is a big one. Nice
I'm
little
asking
question.
everybody that, so just know it's coming.
Honestly, I can't think of anything right now. You guys have been wonderful, amazing, and you've provided everything, at least for me, to begin my career, my life right now. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Wow.
We're glad you're here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Lou Amity. He is our second-year aviation instructor, and he's going to tell you about his nominee for PM Student of the Month.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Mr. Casaro said, I'm Lou Amity. I've been an aviation instructor for about 13 years now, I think. The reason I'm up here is we always talk, every program's got their A students, they've got their excellent students, they do a great job, they show up every day, they do what they're asked to. But I try to look at something that, just like when we nominate these students, somebody that goes above and beyond, somebody that stands out. And I nominated Ryder Roberts, and his mother's here with us today. But unfortunately, Ryder can't be because he is actually working his internship right now, which the first thing I thought about when I was searching for words to put in a nomination was, this young man, he burns the candle at both ends. And we've all heard that term. I thought I was a busy senior when I was in high school and doing several things and playing sports and things like that. But in our program, we normally have in the fourth semester, the seniors, they do either an internship or they do flight training. Well, Ryder's doing both. And he works about a 30-hour internship at the airport currently, and he's also working on his flight rating, his private pilot license right now. It's his future goal is to become a commercial pilot. And from what I understand, he has soloed already, which he's well ahead of his peers in the class already. And he's also, if you know anything about pilot training, he's taken his cross-country solo, which by himself goes down to Tucson in his own plane, makes all the radio calls, everything. So that's quite a feat. When I talk to Ryder weekly, he checks in with me. I'm just impressed. I am just overwhelmed by it, and it gets me. It makes me want to do more. When I see somebody like that really strives to achieve what they want to achieve, and just works his butt off, quite frankly. I do know as a parent, though, that doesn't come from just the student. That's probably some great upbringing, some great example from parents. So I want to thank his mother for being here and for giving me a great student and making my job a lot easier. So I would like to call Ryder up if I could, but unfortunately, like I said, he's working his internship now. He works a late shift at the airport for his internship. So I do thank you very much, and thank you, Mrs. Roberts, for sending me such a wonderful young man.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, as grateful as we are for our Power Road success, we also have a second campus in the organization, the Main Street campus. And for that, I'd like to please call up the principal, Mr. Fisher.
Two campuses, one family, right? So I have the pleasure today to introduce two students, one from our AM session from Mr. Sarr's class and one from our PM session in Mr. Juday's class. So to start off, I'd like to invite Dana Sarr up here to introduce his students from our computer programming and mobile app design program.
Good evening, members of the governing board and guests, and I keep wanting to say chancellor, but I'll give you superintendent. I've got two great classes, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and both of them are filled with seniors who are doing an exceptional job, especially for my first year back here at EVIT. There's always a few that stand out, and I've got one of those with me here tonight. Aldo Morales is right here. Come on up, Aldo. Is an unusual student. He's also enrolled almost half-time at Mesa Community College. So he keeps himself busy. He is a high school graduate already, but he has become kind of the leader in the classroom, along with a couple others, to make sure that any questions that our students have in their learning of program languages, that they can count on one of these students to be their tutor. They all know more than I do. I'm certainly not the smartest one in the room by any means. So we rely on these kind of students to pick up and help the other students learn computer software and especially the mobile apps that we're working on today. I'm impressed with what they've been able to accomplish. We've pushed them real hard. They've all really stepped up beyond what I thought they could do, but I'm still pushing them. So I'd like to just congratulate Aldo along with his family, who are back there, for the hard work that he puts in every day and how much he supports our program and the students. Aldo.
Hello, I'm Aldo.
Hi, Aldo. Anyone want to go before me? They always leave it to me. I'm going to have to read them all in. Okay, I heard something in that. You've already graduated from high school. Did you choose to graduate early?
I haven't graduated yet, actually.
Oh, okay. So, but,
Mr. Sarr's confused on.
okay, he's just confused. So you're at Mesa High?
Yeah, I'm at Mesa High.
So you're a jackrabbit. I'm sorry.
I went to Mesa High and graduated from Mesa.
I just have to rub that into her whenever that happens. So
Jackrabbit.
what is your favorite thing about EVIT, and what could we do to make your time here better?
What I like about EVIT is just like working with my peers and just like helping them out. Because I like teamwork, not just like working by myself. And I don't think that there's anything that we need to improve. I think that EVIT's fine how it is.
How did you hear about EVIT?
Well, they had like this little table at Mesa High. And I always used to ignore that table until like I was suddenly interested. And then I was just like, is there any programs about like programming or something along those lines? And then they just showed me that, and I was suddenly interested, so I just signed up.
Okay,
That's great.
excellent. Any other questions from any other board members?
Yes, I'd like to know if your parents have problems with their computer at home, do you fix it for them?
Sometimes.
And do you make house calls?
No.
Where are mother and father? Is there, okay, you guys, both of you have a young man there you can be proud of. Congratulations.
Is there an app you're developing?
Currently, I'm just learning how to code apps or make apps. We're learning Kotlin right now, which is like a coding language. And we're using Android Studio, so for like Androids. So pretty much that's what we're doing right now. Just learning how to code in Kotlin and how to use Android Studio.
I have a question for you. So if you were really developing this app, you wouldn't be able to tell us, right? It's a secret until you sell it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Very good.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, nice job.
Nice to meet you, Aldo.
And next, I'd like to invite up Mr. Jude to share his Student of the Month from the radio and audio program.
Dr. Wilson, Mr. Fisher, EVIT board members and administrators, good evening. As Mr. Fisher said, my name is Dave Chude, radio audio production instructor. It is my privilege to be here tonight to introduce you to Lily Ramos Thompson, your main campus PM Student of the Month. Lily is a 17-year-old junior who also attends Saguaro High School. It's been a pleasure getting to know Lily during the current school year. She has excelled academically since day one when she joined our program back in August and has continued with the same results here throughout the third quarter. She's an excellent student who takes a serious and professional attitude toward every task. Lily is polite and respectful and is also quiet and sometimes soft-spoken, but she lets her outstanding work speak for itself. She originally had planned to attend EVIT as a culinary student, but said that when she toured our department, she felt something and knew that radio audio production was the right program for her. She said that she could tell from the interaction between the instructors and students that our program harvested a family atmosphere. She also said the lure of recording in the music studio as well as learning production were just too big to ignore. Lily has certainly mastered our Pro Tools editing software. Her productions are top-notch and seem to get better every week. She said she looks forward to receiving feedback and then using it to revise and improve each project. She also has her own weekly radio show on The Pulse and is an engineer in training for our Pulse sports broadcast when it's safe to resume remote broadcasting. In terms of the future, Lily isn't looking past EVIT just yet. She has some ideas of what she'd like to do, but she said she's still enjoying discovering all of the aspects of the music and radio industries. During our conversation last week about this month's award, she also told me that, quote, she's never been passionate about anything until she started coming to EVIT. That passion shows in her attitude, and it's why Lily has been an outstanding addition to our program. I'm so glad that we have her with us for another year and a quarter. She has a very bright future, both in our program and beyond, and it's for all of these reasons that I was pleased to nominate her for the School-Wide Student of the Month Award. And with that, I turn the microphone over to Lily Ramos Thompson. I think she has a few comments prepared, so let her deliver those and then open it up for questions.
He is ready.
First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. Truly, I'm very proud to be standing up here and speaking to all of you. Thank you to my instructor, Dave Jude. He's fantastic. He's an amazing instructor. He's someone that you really look up to and aspire to be like. I'm glad to be working under him and to learn from him and his guidance. It's truly an honor. Circling back to what he said about passion, it's true, I had no passion before this program or coming to EVIT. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I had no skills that I knew of, at least. And yeah, like he said, I was originally enrolled in the culinary program. I toured it. It's like, okay, this is interesting. Then I went and toured the radio and audio production program, and I really did feel something, as cliche as that sounds. Yeah, I mean, it really was a family atmosphere. Everyone was just so welcoming, so inviting. Dave was great. I met him. Yeah, and just the recording studios and everything were too big to ignore. And yeah, every day I get up and I look forward to what are we going to do today? What production? What practical recording techniques are we learning? You know, it's definitely something that helps me get up in the morning. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What could we do better? What could we do better?
I don't want to copy the other answers, but I mean, you guys already do so much. You offer so many tools, so many opportunities. You know, I'm so grateful to be here, truly. So.
How'd you hear about EVIT?
An EVIT recruiter came to my school and
Okay.
talked about it. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you, Lily.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, before we move on again, I'd like to take the minute and thank Mr. Casaro, Mr. Fisher, the faculty and staff at both the Power Campus and the main campus. We know that students that come to us are unique, but in order for them to become who they become, they have to have quality parents at home and a quality educational opportunity, and that falls on our administration and our faculty and staff of these students. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Watkins.
I would like to say before we go on to the next item that the parents, they're welcome to stay for the meeting, but if they'd like to be excused, they can leave at this time.
Don't everybody run out the door, but we get it.
Thank you, parents, for coming and having
Thank
such great
you.
children. And even coming without your child.
That brings us to agenda item B from the legal lobbyist, Dr. Wilson.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, one of the things we are going to do monthly is just bring you a legislative update. You had the opportunity to meet Megan last month, and she's just going to provide a brief kind of update on where we're at in the legislative session. I know that she has another commitment that she has to get to pretty quickly, and so she's going to do kind of a brief overview, but we'll have her back again next month. Thank you, Megan.
Oh, mic's off.
You're muted.
Still muted. There you go.
Sorry about that. There you go.
Hi, Megan.
I got appropriations going in the background, so I'm on multiple Zooms as the life of a lobbyist. So thank you so much for having me again tonight. We are in that period of session which is called the crossover week. So it's where, there's really no committees but appropriations going on, and any bill that didn't get a hearing in their House of Origin is no longer alive, but you'll see a bunch of strikers that happen in House and Senate appropes this week, and they do a lot of floor action. So just moving those bills in the House of Origin over to the other body. On the bills that are our priority bills, we have the fourth year funding bill that is still waiting in the House for that third read vote. The identical bill, those two bills will be discussed in the budget process. We did meet again with leadership and approach chairs to just really reinforce this idea that if they want to fund the 9th year, that's great, but we still have to keep the completer grant. And I think everybody is really on board with that. They see the value of the completer grant, and they really like what that has done just for job training and workforce development and economic development in the state. So a lot of support in that area. And then our other bill that I refer to as the Anytime Anywhere did pass the House floor earlier today as well. There's also an identical bill in the Senate, so those are moving right along with a lot of support from both House and Senate members. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if there's any bill in specific you'd like me to address.
Unless any of the board members, I know you have to jump off to another one. Is there anybody have any questions or any?
Yes, Megan, Jeff Fleedham here. You mentioned a bill and it was a little quick. It was the second one you talked about, an anytime, anywhere. What was that?
Oh, sorry. That's our bill that deals with being able to provide education more flexibly. So at any time of day, any day of week. So courses on the weekends or at night.
It's a funding bill, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's the bill
Well,
number?
it's a flexibility bill and schedule, but then provides the funding.
What is the bill number? Do you have that?
It
Now it sounds like I'm talking to my own legislative liaison, right? Where's the spreadsheet?
Mike, it's on my spreadsheet here. It's 2124.
Okay,
And it
thank you.
passed with 53-7, and then there's an identical Senate bill. Hold on.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know they're all duplicates. That's okay. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
1302.
Thank you, Megan.
Before we move to item C on construction, Carlos, the sound is cutting in and out on her presentation. Is it something I'm doing on this end?
No. Mr. Watkins, we believe it's on her end.
I didn't hear
No.
you.
Yeah, I believe there's I believe there's a bit of a delay. I don't believe it's on our end, so I think we'll be fine for the presentation from the facilities.
It's not a delay, it just is, and I mean, it's choppy.
Broken.
Well, I know, I think we'll be okay though as we move forward. If not, then we can have
Okay.
Carlos.
Okay.
Unless if there aren't any other questions, I know Megan, you got to jump off to another meeting. Thank you.
Bye, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
Hi.
That brings us to the McCarthy construction, agenda item C. Dr. Wilson?
Mr. President, members of the governing board, McCarthy is going to be a regular fixture over the next couple of meetings here for us as we, continue the expansion out at the Power Road campus. And Joey was really great last meeting to kind of give an update on where we're at. And we know that we're in the process of building the aviation, and we know that we're going to come back to you sometime this summer to do GMP 2.3, which is going to be the vet assistant, as well as the remodeling of some of the other spaces that are there. We had touched base, though, I believe 2 meetings ago with the facilities plant, and we wanted to circle back around and update you on what we're doing there. As a reminder, part of the discussion we had with the facilities plant originally, or the 2 meetings ago, was that when we're creating the expansion, we know that there needed to be additional chillers in order for the new spaces to be able to be adequately cooled. The challenge became one of the existing chillers and its size, as well as some of the deficiencies within the chiller. And so the conversation became, when do we schedule replacing that chiller? So in conversation with McCarthy and with our architects, one of the things that became apparent is that it is much more advantageous for us, if we're going to have to replace the chiller, the existing chiller, to do it in the context of when we're already having that space open, when they're already in there working on the facilities plant. So what we're doing is we're going to replace that existing chiller within the scope of this work. And the reason why that's advantageous is, again, because if McCarthy's in there doing work on our other new chillers, then to close everything up and then to open everything back up again 6 months from now, 12 months from now, whatever the time frame might be, did not seem to be the most efficient and effective use of time and resources. On top of that, there's value in scale. And so as we were going out to bid and looking for chillers, the ability for us to have 2 in one package, not one just as an isolation, gave a better opportunity for a price point on both of the chillers. Where this becomes a bit of a challenge is, and I have all the confidence in the world in our architects and in our construction company, that through the contingencies and through cost effectiveness in terms of their planning and their construction, that we will be able to absorb, if not all, close to all of the cost of that chiller within the context of this project. If we get into GMP 2.3 and we unfortunately have another archaeological dig, then that's a cost that we're not anticipating, and so we may have to come back here. But we're optimistic that we can cover the cost of the replacement chiller within the scope of the work. And if we aren't able to, then we'll come back to you at a later point in time and talk about either a revision up, or are there areas within the project that we're wanting to rethink in terms of the total scope of the work. And so McCarthy's here tonight just to kind of give us a visual kind of Neil from our architectural firm is a visual update and kind of walk us through some of those updates so that you guys know what's going to be going on out there while they're doing the expansion of the aviation and while we're waiting to get a GMP 2.3 to you in June, I think. So Neil?
Thank you, Dr. Wilson, President Watkins, board members, thank you. Yes, as Dr. Wilson said, we're here to continue to be in front of you as we move towards GMP 3, which we're planning to bring back in front of you in June. So tonight we're going to give you an update on the central plant. Carlos, you want to turn the slide? Maybe. So originally, when we looked at the master plan before, we were looking at, I don't know how much of this, you can even see that on there. So the central plant building is over on the left-hand side. It's kind of that trapezoidal shaped building over there. We originally had a parking lot situated next to that. We had about 25 stalls that were situated over there, plus a small mechanical service yard. And as we worked with the staff on site, Lee and John out there, they started to realize that they needed some expansion to that central plant yard. And also that the current parking lot and the addition of the parking garage added a lot of flexibility with the parking count. So they asked us to go back and revisit the layout for the central plant yard. So you can kind of see that that's that large kind of tan walled in area by the white wall that really becomes a support area to that central plant. And the parking lot itself is no longer there, but we put some vegetation around it, landscape area to kind of dress it up, since it is kind of right there at the main entry. But it gives a good support to the rest of the campus as you continue to expand east. It'll also be able to supply all of the maintenance needs, the landscape needs, and also the central plant needs. So that was kind of something we wanted to update you on currently and the direction that we're heading with that. If you go to the next slide, Carlos. Shows you kind of a rendering, just to kind of show you, we've kind of tied it into the site walls, have a large 8-foot high wall there that can hide anything that's in there behind the walls, but it has a nice soft landscape appearance as you're kind of coming in. We can even use that sign as some signage and put some wayfinding on there too as you kind of circle around that main campus area. You go to the next one. So what Dr. Wilson was talking about was really this idea when we started to come through on the central plant design, there was always an anticipation of a third chiller. And if you look at the large boxes, the rectangles up in the upper right there, the one on the lower left, the middle one, were the two existing ones. And then there was a housekeeping pad, a concrete pad, for a future third chiller when we knew this campus was going to expand. So as we were designing the third chiller and anticipating the aviation, the VetAssist growth, Lee and the staff out there brought some attention that they're having trouble with one of the chillers. And so that's when we began to do an assessment on that existing chiller. They actually call it chiller number 1. It sits in the middle position right there, and they've had some continual maintenance over that. So we said, okay, well, if you want to look for some improvements, obviously, as Dr. Wilson said, there's an advantage to do that now. So that's what we're exploring. In addition to that chiller, it's supplied by a cooling tower. So you have 2 cooling towers on the campus right now. Each chiller has 1 cooling tower. So that cooling tower would be replaced at the same time as that new chiller, or as that existing chiller, I apologize. And then when you add a third chiller, you add a third cooling tower. Through this whole design, there are some efficiencies picked up. By replacing the chiller now, you actually are coming back with a larger chiller to create some more redundancy, which will give you some more energy efficiency and long lasting for the new campus. So we were able to pick up an additional 200 tons. Just to give you an idea of how many tons you have out there now, you have about 400 tons now. So by adding the third chiller, you're going to go up to about 800 tons or more, but we gain an efficiency by increasing that second chiller. So that's kind of where we kind of talked about it makes more sense to do it now to find those efficiencies, though it may be additional scope. As a design team and Mccarthy, we work together, we're definitely going to work to kind of keep that in the original budget, in the original scope, to find some other savings throughout the project. So I think we just want to give you some visuals on that, so you kind of understand exactly what we're kind of dealing with right now as a milestone.
Any questions?
I do. Edith isn't here, so my question is, do we have to appropriate and go out and bid for this, do it the proper way through all this stuff, and we're doing that?
Great question, Mr. Covington. So the short answer to that's yes, and that's part of what they did in this process, that they went out and got multiple bids for the different chillers and used the competitive variable as the largest component, but also there was discussion about maintaining consistency with the other chillers that we have within the organization, so that we have one vendor that's coming out on that campus, not multiple vendors. But yes, they went out and procured it in the same structure that we would do if we went out on our own. The advantage is that because we were doing multiple, there was a bit of a price break for the two than versus if we would just gone out singular a year from now, as an example. But yes, we did.
Okay.
unless there are any other questions, thank you, McCarthy and everybody, and Mr. Watkins, I'll turn the meeting back to you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item number 4, approval of the minutes of the February 8 meeting. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of the meeting held on February 8th.
Is there a second?
I second.
Having a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, excuse me, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Boggs?
Johnson?
Aye.
Covington?
Aye.
Doolin?
Aye.
Boggs and I. Lane?
Aye.
Fleetum?
Aye.
Hart?
Aye.
Watkins?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. It sounds like someone's playing video games.
What is that?
My phone has started beeping and I don't know why. Oh, there, Dolores must have got it. Thank you.
It's good you have her around still.
Yeah. That brings us to item number 5, call to the public. Dr. Wilson, do we have anything here?
No, we don't, Mr. Watkins.
Thank you. That brings us to item 6A, personnel. Do I have a motion to approve the certified and classified personnel requests?
I'll make the motion to approve the certified and classified personnel requests.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Boggs?
Johnson?
Aye.
Covington?
Aye.
Doolin?
Aye.
Boggs and I. Lane?
Aye.
Fleetum?
Aye.
Hart?
Aye.
Watkins?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
Mr. President, before you move to the next one, I wanted to ask if at all possible we could hear 7B next before the others, if you wouldn't mind doing that.
So you're wanting to skip to 7B as in boy?
Yes.
That's fine.
And then we'll come back to 6B.
If we can remember that. So you want to go to the Class B?
Correct, if you're okay with that.
I'm okay with that. Do we have any discussion from Dr. Wilson first?
I think you need a motion, don't you?
Well, do you have anything you want to present to us on this, or no?
I'd be happy to answer questions. I do. Mr. President, members of the governing board, every single year we reassess our class fees. As a reminder, those are dollars we charge students to take for material that they will take with them. We provide many of the things that students use throughout the day, but if there's either equipment or resources that they take with them, then we charge them a fee for that. One of the things that we have tried over the course of time, over the last 2 years at least, is to be very mindful of the dollars that we're charging our students. And so, and we started down this road 2 years ago to really look at what we're charging and to make sure that we're only charging our students what it is that they need to be charged for in order to be successful in the classroom. And so as you go through this, you can see that a number of the programs have no increase from last year, and quite honestly, there's quite a few that actually have a reduction in class fees from the year prior. There are, I believe, 2 programs that have fee increases. One of those is the aviation program, in which the gentleman was here, I believe it was last meeting, talking about the need to have students have access to the components he discussed that they would take with them. What we're doing in that particular situation is we're offsetting a portion of that cost through our student fee account. As we, every single year, there was for a number of years quite a bit of money that was just held. And so we're looking at ways to utilize those dollars so that even if we have to expand the class fees, those get absorbed by the organization. So the fee doesn't change. It's that it's not charged to the parent. It's paid by the organization.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I was very pleased that most of the fees were either the same or less. Congratulations on that.
I'd like to make a motion. I make a motion that we take away the class fees anywhere there's a textbook or workbook associated with that fees, and the institution absorbs that cost.
That's already on there.
I'm confused. Are you making a separate motion?
I'm motioning that I want to take away the textbook cost, because on many of these, we're charging the student for a textbook or a workbook, and I think that cost should be absorbed by the institution.
Most of them have
I don't
no
see-
A lot of them do. Just look through there, and you'll see that there's
Yeah, there are a
textbook and workbook fees, and I believe those should be absorbed by the institution. That is my motion.
Do I have a second on that?
I second.
Is there any discussion on that?
I see.
Mr. Watkins,
Yes.
I'm curious to know, does anyone know what that will cost us? I'm generally
Not much.
favorably inclined to it, but I'd like to know if we have a sense of the fiscal impact.
I don't. Dr. Wilson,
Sorry.
do you?
Mr. President, members of the governing board, we don't. We can table this until the 15th and come back with that number, or do you need it by then, before then?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. President, members of the governing board, Ms. Perez, if she had to give you a relatively educated guesstimate, but mind you, it's still a relatively educated guesstimate, in the neighborhood of about $200,000.
And my question on that is because I've noticed that we have a lot of money that we continue to carry over in our student funds, that the students raise those funds, and I just feel like other schools don't charge our students for their textbooks necessarily. I mean, and that's just one for me when I see that we're charging for a textbook. Truly, even now with most textbooks being virtual, the cost has even decreased to the institution. So I just have to ask myself why we're not absorbing that cost.
Do some of them need that for after completion to maybe study for state exams?
I mean, I think we would have to go through and determine, I understand the point, and to your concern, there are dollars that have been carried forward dollars. We're no longer adding to those, and so at the end of the day, part of what we're doing is we're wanting to make sure that we're not charging student things that they don't need, right? But there is a large carryover, so we can absorb that cost. To Ms. Boggs' concern, if those are materials that they take with them, I don't know if that's allowable. It might very well be.
I would be fine with making I would be fine with tabling it and getting that information, but typically speaking, the test books are virtual and you have them for so long anyway, and then they would expire. If it's a workbook they're taking with them, I think that's entirely different, but I don't have that knowledge, and I just think it's unusual. It's just unusual to me that we're charging for textbooks.
I see no reason to table it. I don't know why we
No.
can't have the vote.
I have a question.
Yes.
In really broad, or, is this gonna be another educated guesstimate? Let's say arbitrarily 4 years ago and today, what do the fees look like?
The fees that we're assessing are less today than they were 4 years ago. I don't know if that's
My sense is it's a significant amount.
significant amount. I mean, we're
Over 50%?
I wouldn't say 50%. What I do know though is that historically, up until the last 2 years, there was dollars that were captured from students that weren't expended, and that's why we have that large amount that's sitting there. We're in a position this year where I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. President, in which we're running about $9,000 left. Is that right? About $9,000 left in those accounts that we expect to be expended by the end of the year. So we won't carry forward any new dollars, which in years past, we would carry forward hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So there is a significant reduction. I believe that we can wait till the 15th. Are you okay with that? Wait till the 15th and just bring it back. Because one of the things I do want to get a better sense of is when we say textbook and workbook, what are those, right? And if it's a workbook that the student takes with him or her,
Or
that
spends, yeah.
that may be something different than a textbook that in theory is recycled that just stays in the classroom. So we can table it and bring it back on the 15th with a better understanding of what those costs are and what we're really talking about when we say workbook and textbook.
I'm okay with tabling it then.
Right.
And then also understand,
Do we have to vote on the motion that was made?
Yes, we need to
But
vote
Mr.
on the
Fleetham-
motion to modify.
Was there a second on your motion?
Yes, but we're still in discussion, so go ahead,
Yeah.
Mr. Fleetham.
I'd move a substitute motion to table it for one meeting.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Can I ask a question? So if
I
I
would
could
like to
get,
finish discussion.
Mr. Fleetham, you had started, and I just want to make sure that we're responsive to the needs that you have.
a couple questions, or it's an extended question. The cost versus workbooks versus textbooks, one thing, and why do we have textbook, workbook charges to certain classes and none to others? Why we have a bunch that don't have them, and then we have.
I couldn't tell what he said.
The textbook, workbook.
Is your mic on?
Is your mic on?
His mic's not on.
Usually told to be quiet. So what I'd like to know is the cost of textbooks, separate from the cost of workbooks, if we can get that. And then also why, and I'm just looking at one class here. So we got 3D animation has got none. And then aesthetics, let's see, and then another one will have textbook, workbook fees. One class will have some, one class won't, but it doesn't seem to be the same category, so.
We'd be happy to pull all of that back together. My guess is what we're going to find is that there are uniquenesses in each of the programs.
Sure.
And some, they may use kits that don't necessitate the workbook or the textbook. And so we can bring back on the 15th this item and parse it out in terms of cost. And when we say workbook, what's a work, versus textbook. And then you guys can have a more informed decision opportunity on the 15th.
Okay, I just want, before we close this out, I just want to say just why I bring this up is one, like I said, typically schools don't charge for textbooks. So that is something that I feel is unusual that we're doing here. The second thing is COVID's been hard on a lot of people. And even if we need students to be able to come, and if we can help them out a little bit, I'm all for helping them out.
Yeah, I think we should make public or do something to bring forth the concept of what the fees were 4 years ago. It's on, I just gotta talk to her. As opposed to now, and, I think we need to ring our own bell a little bit for areas where we've significantly reduced the cost to come to EVIT. As long as, we talked last meeting somewhat about how we've reduced the cost of administration by 50%. And I think those are things that resonate with people quite a bit. That we're being quite a bit better stewards with taxpayer money, and that we're doing everything we can to make it available. Because frankly, I think there were a lot of kids that were priced out of the market 4 years ago for the student fees. I was appalled at some of the fees when I first joined the board here.
So we can absolutely do a bit of a historical walk down and explain that, because I think you're right. I think
it needs to be publicized and put out there.
And I think that there is value in doing that, because I think sometimes we lose sight of what was versus what is, but I think there's always room for improvement. So I think we can do both when we come back on the 15th.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would hope, this is Bill Hobson, I would hope that we make every effort to keep textbooks and workbooks from being a barrier, the cost of those a barrier to any student attending. So my hope is that when we come back to the next meeting, we're going to find that we can afford to reduce those fees even further. And we ought to sing, our praises about that and encourage more students.
I wholeheartedly agree. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine, milking students.
I agree too, and I think students are the reason we're here, and we should be putting students first.
Then I'll call for, then I'll call.
Mr. President, I think it's incredibly wise to always be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. But I'd like to think that everybody, not everybody, that there's quite a few people within the organization that put students first. And so the idea that in a situation that we may need to adjust, I completely agree with. But I also believe the idea that we work around the parameters of putting students first.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second, right, to table this. I'll call for the vote now.
Johnson?
Ms. Boggs?
Aye.
Covington?
Aye.
Doolin? Aye. Boggs is an aye. Lane?
Aye.
Fleedham? Hart?
Aye.
Watkins?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
Motion carried. And now we're reverting back to 6B. To make sure I'm not lost, right? That's where we're headed?
I believe you're right.
Okay, then moving on to 6B, which is salary increases for certified staff. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Wilson.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, there is a similar conversation that will be had in the salary increases for, which would be item B and item C. One of the things that we did last meeting is we brought to you kind of the makings of a beginning of a budget for next year. And it was just bare bones, skeleton bones, but we talked a little bit about how in this year's budget, we forecast, I believe it was an 8% decline of enrollment in this year, and we didn't see that. In fact, we saw nothing close to that. So what that allowed us to do is to revise our budget up, which means that we then have carry forward going into next year. One of the things that will be interesting for us moving forward into next year is that without having our recruiters be able to be on the campuses, and you heard that a number of the students said they heard about EVIT because there was a table that was set up. They heard about EVIT because the recruiters were there, and certainly we didn't have the opportunity to do that this year. But one of the things we did do differently this year is that we had, well, not differently, I think one of the things that we maximized more this year is the opportunity of trying to connect to parents, and to connect to parents in ways that are a bit different than maybe what we've done in years past. And so in doing that, we're optimistic that we're going to have enrollment next year that is close to what we're experiencing this year. Now, there's no guarantee because we don't know, but that's our forecast. But we're always preventative in terms of creating a budget. So when we were talking last meeting, with Ms. Perez was talking last meeting, we're forecasting a 10% decline in enrollment. But that is a preventative number, just because I believe that it's better to budget down and be able to revise up than vice versa. So why am I telling you all this? Part of the reason why we had the discussion last meeting was to begin to share information with all of you as it relates to our revenue, our funding from this year going into next year, and then our ability to build a budget going into next year with a 10% decline to help make sure that in case our forecast is inaccurate, there's some safety nets that were there. What we shared last time was that given those parameters, we're perfectly positioned to navigate the budget that was briefly described last meeting, but there weren't any pieces in there that had to deal with employee compensation. And so we shared with you costs for salary increases for the different groups of employees. And we brought those back again this meeting, in addition to it, what it would cost by subgroup, and then what it would cost total for the organization, depending on whether it was a 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever you chose. The benefit of doing this now is because like we said last meeting, our goal is to be able to get contracts out to staff before we go on spring break, so they have an idea of understanding what their work agreement's going to be, and we would have the ability to have enough time by the time in which contracts are due to be able to still attract and retain quality staff, because we would have a better sense of what our openings are if we can get contracts out sooner rather than later. It's an interesting dilemma in some ways, I'll be honest with you, because I believe this governing board has done an amazing job supporting our employees, both morally, but also all the work that you all have done to kind of build capacity for the system to be equitable across the system. And there was a lot of work that was done to correct salary schedules and placement and all those kind of pieces. But what we do know as an organization is that, it's a competition. It's a competition for talent. And when we compete, we're not just competing against our neighboring school districts. That's part of the competition. We're really competing against industry. And that's a big difference because in industry, even in today's environment, I've talked to members from the industry that have said this is the best year they've had financially. Now, that's not across the spectrum, and I'm not making light of what's happened to so many different families. The point is that we compete for salaries. Our salaries compete against the private sector, not the public sector. So we provided information to you that would give you a sense of what a 3% increase would look like, a 4% increase would look like, a 5% increase would look like by different classes. So you have the certified teachers, then you have the non-certified staff, and then you have the administrative and adult education staff kind of lumped into 3 different categories with the dollar amounts of what those percent increase would look like for each of the individuals within those domains, so you can kind of get a sense of what individuals would be making given a 3, 4, 5, 6% increase, whatever the governing board chooses. So a lot of words right there. I don't know if I said any good words, but a lot of words.
Dr. Wilson, I have a question. I saw 3, 4, and 5% increases on the certified, but it seems like on the other domains it went to 6%.
So on all of them, I believe there's a 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, there are.
So there was a 6 on the teacher.
Yeah, there's a 3, 4, 5, and 6 on all of them.
I would be in favor of, I've always been one that kind of operates in a prudent manner. I would like to be able to give everyone 10, 12, 15% salary increases. But I know that's not possible, even with the economic impact payments that we're getting. But I would be in favor of going with a 4. Is it possible to do a 4.5%?
It's America. We can do whatever we want in this country. Yes, sir.
I would be in favor of going kind of right down in the middle somewhere, a 4.5%.
Is that a motion?
No, I want to know what the other board members are feeling about it.
Well, I would like to make the motion that we do the 5%, do the different things. That's kind of been the pattern. I think we'll be a leader in districts. I don't think a lot of districts will be giving 5% this year. They'll probably level funding. I think we're in a good, comfortable position to offer that. I think it'll do a lot to stabilize our staffing. That would be my motion.
Start again. We were both talking at the same time.
I would make the motion that we approve the 5% increase for fiscal year 21.
Do I have a second?
Quiet. Apparently not.
I'll second, if I'm allowed to second.
I was on mute. I'll second.
Yeah. Mr. Watkins, you can make a motion or second it.
Well, then I'll say, I would have seconded, whatever the past tense is, without any hesitation. I'm all in favor of that.
Okay, then we have a motion and a second.
Then we'll call for the vote, Ms. Boggs.
May I have a
Discussion.
Discussion. Is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
If we're still under COVID next year, are we still going to do the COVID for the extra work stipends and things like that?
Mr. President, members of the governing board, if we're still under COVID, I think a lot of it depends on what the nature of the issue is, right? A lot of work has been done this year that would require us not to do some of those components again. But I wouldn't want to sit here and say absolutely not, because we may be in a situation where we're not sure of what's completely different than what we have now. But the short answer is I would not expect us to be doing the COVID extra duty work next year because of the work we did this year.
Okay. my other question is, over the last 2 years, what was the increase 2 years ago and last year?
Agreed.
So that's kind of, do you want the total increase or do you want it broken down based?
Broken down by year.
No, I understand, but broken down based on what the state provided and what EVIT provided?
Correct.
Okay. Can I give you since 2011 or you just want the last two?
We really just need the last two since we've
Okay.
been here.
So in fiscal year 18-19, it was a 10%, all came from the governor's office. 19-20, it was an 8%, 5% from the governor's office, 3% from EVIT. In fiscal year 2021, it was a 7%, 5% from the governor's office, 2% from EVIT.
Okay.
And again, I want to make sure that I'm being really clear. I think this board has done an amazing job trying to right the ship. But in 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, the 10, 5, 5, in theory, was provided across the state. Now, some districts weren't able to do it as well as you all did. But that was an attempt to try to right the ship for everybody. And so if everybody's ship is being righted at the same time, then there isn't necessarily the step forward that you might get because everybody had a step forward. Yes, we might have had a little bit of a step forward in addition, the 2% last year, the 3% the year before, but not so much that it differentiates outside.
But what about the leveling of the playing field? Because some of those people went up
they did.
significantly.
They did.
And we didn't drop anybody.
No, and like I said, the governing board has been amazing. And so, yes, there are some individuals, but yes, there were some individuals that got leveled up because of practices that were conducted in years past. The position that the structure is now that when an individual gets hired, there's a system in place that identifies what their education is, blah, 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 so they all get placed. Individuals that didn't have that opportunity were afforded that opportunity. That's why they were leveled. So yes, there was a leveling in which some individuals made significant jumps, but it wasn't due to arbitrariness. It was due to
agreed.
consistency within the system.
So I look at this, we had a 10, 5, 5, we do another 5. That's an increase of about 25%, but there's interest on interest. Interest is more like 27 or 28%.
More like 30.
Or 30, whatever. So we're doing extremely not good.
I think we also need to realize we just talked about fiscal responsibility. We talked about the fact we're dealing with the pandemic. We talked about a potential 10% decrease. And what we've failed to acknowledge is the fact that we have increased compensation for every staff member in this organization year after year after year, and we have not let anyone go. So I think there needs to be a little bit of consideration for the fact that everyone is not only gainfully employed, but well employed, and their position is secure. So there's something to be said for that as well. Well, again, we're recognizing that many are struggling currently. So I'm not comfortable with that much of an increase. Also, the cost of living increase in Phoenix right now is 2.2% this year. You look at Social Security, and I believe it's 1.6 or 1.8. So as far as cost, 1.2 is it?
$10 a month.
So again, I think considering a pandemic, that we need to be a lot more fiscally responsible and predicting and projecting a little bit more conservatively rather than being quite as generous as we have been. And we have been very generous as a board, I feel.
And my concern is the difference, just for an example, in 3% raise to a 4% raise across the board is approximately $125,862, which is about what it would cost to give our students their books. That's where I'm going to keep coming into the dilemma, is I'm all for giving our faculty raises. I think we should give a raise. I'm not sure 5% is the right number, because at some point, we're charging student, it just doesn't settle with me without having that information. If there's funds to do it all, that's different, but I don't have that answer that there's funds to do it all.
And we have no idea what's coming up.
It's not.
I don't think it is.
It's not.
There.
That's okay, maybe I'll talk a little louder.
They can't hear you on that.
Why don't you get the other microphone? Boy, everybody's going to give theirs up.
Okay, there, that's better.
Can't be a lawyer, give it up.
I'd like to ask a question. Since we tabled the student charges, the book and the textbook and workbook
discussion. Can we table this discussion until the next meeting so where we have more information? I'm a little bit on board with Ms. Doolin on this. I'm all for, for supporting our teachers, and EVIT competes with some folks, and I would rather us have all the good teachers than somebody else. So,
Do you want to make a
I
motion?
would like to see this tabled, and we can discuss it at our next meeting when we have the information on the textbook workbook funding. See if we can do that.
I don't mind tabling it, but don't we have a motion and a second?
That's what I was wondering, is do I need to make a motion?
You can make a motion over that, and that can be seconded, and we can table it, because we just did that with the last one.
So I can make a motion then. I'd like to make a motion that we table this discussion until the next board meeting.
I'll second it.
So, Mr. President, members of the governing board, like I said, this is America, we can do what you choose to. I guess my somewhat frustration is that when we came here last time, a meeting ago, and we said that, our goal is to be able to be in a position that we could get contracts out before spring break, because that provides efficiency and effectiveness and us being able to recruit. We can table it till the 15th, but that is obviously after spring break.
Let's have a special session.
I would be happy to have a special session.
I think we can meet everybody's needs. I mean, it can be virtual.
Well, can we lower the percent increase to one where it would make us all happier and solve the same, and answer your concern? Could we go with like a 4 or a 4.5?
Figure out the textbook issue.
We have to act on his motion.
No.
Hearing no other discussion, then let's call for a vote.
I have one question before we move on, and I think it might pertain especially if we table this to the next meeting, but I realize we're competing with the private sector and not just, other education institutions, but where do we stand in comparison with other JTEDs or CTEDs as far as like West Mech? Are our teachers compensated more, less? Are we about par? Do we know that?
So the one that we do have the comparison on is West Mac, and what we found with West Mac is that they have a higher base salary in most cases than we do, but I don't believe that they provide the same sort of opportunity in 301. So when it's all said and done, then in theory, I think that we're probably right with them in terms of competitiveness. I don't think that they're ahead of us or we're ahead of them when you in a significant way, when you pull in together the total dollar amount that a teacher here can earn versus what they get there just more on their base level.
And then when you talked about anticipating the 10% decrease in enrollment next year, when we look at a 6% increase, if we were to go to the most optimistic extreme of raises here, if we did experience a 10% decrease in enrollment next year and we adopted a 6% raise across the board, would we be able to float that for next year? And if so, for how many years until we recovered to our normal enrollment?
So, really good question. So the short answer is yes. That, like we said, that we built last year's budget on an anticipated 8% decline, and we didn't have that. In fact, we had growth in some, when you look at the aggregate of the satellites. So there's a carry forward of I think if I remember our meeting last time I want to say $6 million. And so that $6 million carry forward would provide the flexibility to live through a year if we have the worst case scenario of a 10% decline. We're hoping that that's not the case. We do know, though, that if that is the case, that negative enrollment pattern would probably plague us for 2 years, because if we have fewer number of students in first year, then that means probably fewer numbers of students in second year until we can kind of get that number rolling back the positive direction. So we could carry that decline over a 2-year period of time and still be financially viable. Our hope, obviously, is that we don't have the 10%. Our hope is that we have a 3%, or we even grow, God forbid. We've grown year over year for the last 2 years. If we build the budget around a 10% decline and it's a 4% decline, then in some ways we revise our budget up again because the deficit wasn't what we expected it to be. which would create an even larger amount of carry forward into the next fiscal year. So and I understand Mr. Johnson's point about being fiscally responsible. I think that's always a wise decision for the governing board. I think one thing I'd like to make mention though is that in the past 2 years we have fewer employees now than we did 2 years ago. And in the employee sector that we've gone down, it's been largely in administration. So we've reduced our total number of employees, but we've actually increased the number of teaching positions. We go back to that pie in which, my commitment to the governing board is to be under 10% administrative costs. So at the end of the day, we know we've gone down because we believed that we were not being fiscally responsible to our taxpayers with all the positions that we had. So I do think there's value in prudence in being fiscally responsible. I also believe that there's value in prudence in being able to say, we don't want to just, be treading into the pool, the shallow end of the pool in our competitiveness. We want to lead the ability to compensate our employees. And like I said, the 6% is a big number. I'm not minimizing that by any stretch of the imagination. Is it a number, Mr. Hart, to your question, that we could absorb for 2 years? The answer to that is yes. I believe that we could, based on the carry forward from last year and the carry forward that I anticipate we will have going into 22-23.
Thank you.
I'd like to have the motion read that we're about to vote on. I thought it was to table it.
No, the motion and second was to approve 5%.
But that motion
And
didn't
then-
go anywhere. That's the one that's been tabled.
Well, no, it hasn't. We need a motion to modify and second and
That's what
voted.
we'll be voting on.
There's a motion to table.
Yep. There's a motion to table on the table.
So if we
I'm
can
confused.
afford 6%, then can't we afford 4% and the textbooks?
Yeah, what if we did
I mean, I'm
that?
just
What if we
throwing
did
that
the
out there.
4% raise for the staff and then the textbook?
Mr. President, members of the governing
How does that
board, I don't doubt that we can afford the covering of the textbooks. The carry forward amount in that account, because of what happened in years past, is significantly large enough that we could absorb that. What I want to do is be able to come back and tell you exactly in certain programs are the dollars that we're charging, not just for textbooks, but for workbooks and I'm going to say kits, but that's not the right word, that the student takes with them, that it becomes part of what they need to move forward. And if that's the case, then I'm not so sure that we can buy that for them. So what I want to be able to do is come back and say, here's the issue. We can certainly pay for this. We don't think we can pay for this because it's used for this way. But whatever it is that we conclude we can pay for, there's absolutely the ability to offset that cost and not push it to the student, for sure.
That makes me a little more.
And I understand, and we haven't even addressed the adult education increases, which are significant. $1,700 for one class, $425, $350. That's significant. That's some people not coming here, going someplace else at $1,700 increase. So we haven't even looked at that. So I know that I'm probably out of order. So I've been out of order most of my life.
The attorney is
so I
shaking his head.
I'm shaking mine. I'm not
So,
sure.
I mean,
where we're at.
I don't know if where anyone else is. I'm comfortable, I'm not comfortable going over 4% right now.
You're not comfortable with what?
Going over 4% right now.
You would not be comfortable with even 4.5, which is where I wanted to go.
If I was guaranteed that we were going to help the students, but
Yeah,
I'm not
that would-
guaranteed that.
I thought I heard Dr. Wilson say that we could afford that and
There's
still have the.
We can't afford that. I guess
Let's call for the question, please.
yeah, let's call for, where are we?
On the table. Tabling of
Table.
this for next meeting.
Tabling for next meeting.
But that doesn't meet Mr. Wilson, Dr. Wilson's timeframe.
And again, it's not, I'm not the one that
That's my
matters.
concern. Then can we call for the vote on the tabling? Because I'm not sure where we're at.
You
Then
can
it
do
would-
that, and then if you vote it down, then you can have the discussion about 4 and 4.5%.
That's what I'd like to
Right.
do. And
Okay.
let's call for the vote on the tabling
Don't call me
motion.
first.
Johnson,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Tulin, Boggs is an aye. Lane?
No.
Fleetum?
Aye.
Hart?
Aye.
Watkins?
No.
Hobson?
Aye.
Okay, and vote to table.
It's motion carried, it's tabled.
Yep. We get to talk about it next time.
We probably need to
Matt,
talk about it
I'd like
next
to
week.
request that there be an opportunity between now and our spring break to have a meeting, even if you have to meet virtually.
Absolutely.
That'd be fine.
I agree.
Absolutely.
We need to put that on, when we get to calendar, we can talk about that.
Yep.
Agree.
Let's do a special session.
Mr. Chairman, for the next meeting, whenever it happens, I'd like to get some information from the administration about what the sense of the extent of the increase will be, or the limit on the increase will have on retention. To the extent that industry, for example, can woo away some of our instructors, I worry about that. I mean, if we, depending upon the level of the increase that we get them.
Yep.
So just
Yep.
I'd like that information from the administration. I'd also like some sense about where the level of compensation for teachers at each of those levels relates to where we stand nationally for the teachers in each of those categories. Is that something that the administration can get us?
Can you better, I'm not quite sure I understand the last question.
Well, I'd like some sense of where the projected compensation for at any of those increases relates to teachers in each of those categories nationally. I'm worried about folks getting. I mean, one of the classics about Arizona is that you do your teacher training in Arizona. For God's sake, don't be a teacher in Arizona, because your teacher compensation is it doesn't compare with Iowa or California, wherever. So I just like some sense of where those that may be all part of the first thing I'm asking for.
Okay.
But I'd like to have some sense of what that does to us in terms of teacher retention.
Okay, I got it.
I would like,
My guess is that administration would be in a position sometime early part of next week to have it pull all together. And so we can talk at the end of the agenda about a timeframe that might work, so we can meet again before we go on our spring break.
Excellent.
okay. Then we can move on to C, salary increases for support,
Probably table that one.
administration.
I think
Motion to
that-
table.
I think that
I'll
goes
second.
along with the other issue.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll
Yes.
second.
At 2
Any
seconds.
discussion?
I'd like, same thing from Dr. Wilson or someone in the administration, I'd like to have some sense of what the de minimis increases, or what the increases will do, whatever they are, with respect to retention of administrative personnel.
Okay.
Still on the calendar.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what his question was.
You want me to try it again?
Yes.
I'd like the same information from Dr. Wilson or whomever in the administration about the effect of the amount of the increase on retention of administrative personnel.
Okay.
Did that come through?
It did,
Ms.
yeah.
Watkins?
Yes, okay. Dr. Wilson, can you see to that then?
Absolutely.
Okay. Then do we have a motion to
I looked
table?
at those.
We're out of order.
We have a motion and second.
Yes, and there's a motion that's been seconded to table this till next meeting.
Then let's call for the vote. Ms. Boggs?
Johnson?
Aye.
Covington?
Aye.
Doolin? Aye. Boggs is an aye. Lane?
Aye.
Fleetum?
Aye.
Hart?
Aye.
Watkins?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
Motion carries. Let's see, where are we at now? We're at class fees.
We did that.
Are we at 7B?
We did
7A,
7A.
I believe.
7A.
We're at 7A. Okay, now I'm with the program. We're at item 7A, adult education. Do I have a motion on approving adult education tuition and fees?
So moved.
I'll second.
Hearing a motion and a second, is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. Item 2 on the memorandum. So are we conducting a class that's only for George Brazil technicians?
No, Mr. Lane, it's called the George Brazil program, but we're servicing any student that enrolls, not just students that are coming out of the George Brazil company.
How did that become so named?
It's my understanding it became so named quite a bit of time ago, after an endowment or a donation was made by the late Mr. Brazil or his widow.
His widow.
It's about 4 years ago.
Probably.
4 years ago.
Something like that.
It's noted that all students that go there can get hired by any plumbing institution, not just George Brazil.
Yeah, okay. Is that something that was intended to go for perpetuity, or?
To be truthful, I don't know. I can do some research for you. I guess, from my perspective at least, certainly we can look at naming the program something different, but at the same time, I don't know that necessarily it hurts the program to be that name. So I think at some point, the discussion of where's the priority and what is the priority, but we certainly can pull out some history and see when it occurred.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, if we still have that same relationship with that organization and they're supporting ours to the point where we name a program after that company.
Right.
Because a couple of years ago, I sat in a rather contentious meeting with Mrs. Doolin, and that person gave me cause to wonder what's going on, if that was a perpetuity thing, or if it was just, if they're still actively involved in providing support for the program, that's one thing, but if that's not the case, we might need to look at that.
Yeah, we'd be happy to go back and look at when it was.
I'm just questioning, I think we need to move forward on the action item, but I would think by next year, we should have a little more information about that.
Okay.
Could I ask for someone to read the motion?
The motion is to approve the fees as
Adult
Provided.
education center tuition and fees.
supply fee increases for adult education,
Well, it says tuition and fees.
tuition and
Tuition and
fees.
fees.
Okay, yes, and it's been seconded. Then let's call for the vote. Ms.
Johnson?
Boggs?
Yes. Johnson?
Aye.
Covington?
Aye.
Doolin?
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Lane?
Aye.
Fleedem?
No.
Hart?
Aye.
Watkins?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
Motion carried. Now, let's see. That moves, I think that moves us to agenda item 8.
Correct.
Back on track.
Something around there.
Well, it comes after some.
Discussion item, and I'll call on Dr. Watkins. Wilson?
Mr. President, members of the governing board, in the memo I sent you, I had to apologize because I don't think I communicated really well what a foreign trade zone is. And so I provided some backup to you just in terms of the concept of a foreign trade zone and why they exist and the benefit they provide, not only to the business, obviously, but also to the communities that are surrounded by the business. And so there were several different articles that I included in there, just so that we all had a similar understanding on what the FTZ does and why it exists. And so when we go into executive session, there's a bit more context to that, but I just wanted to make sure that you all had the information so that we could be on the same page for what an FTZ is. And unless there's questions of me, that's all I had to share.
Thank you. At this point, the board needs to convene an executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? No. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Boggs?
Johnson,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Doolin.
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Lane.
Aye.
Fleedham.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Watkins. Watkins.
Did you call me?
Yes.
Aye.
Hobson.
Aye.
Motion
Okay.
carried. The board will now convene an executive session. Adjourn this.
Order.
A and B together.
I will second.
Boy, I couldn't tell what his motion was for sure.
He's just combining both motion, A and B together so we
Okay.
can have a continuous meeting.
Then I'm happy.
In executive session.
Do we need to vote on that? I think we do.
Yes, we do.
Ms. Boggs?
Johnson,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Doolin.
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Lane.
Aye.
Fleedham.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Watkins.
Aye.
Hobson.
Aye.
Motion carried. We'll adjourn this meeting and convene an executive session. Are we back in regular session?
Yes, we are.
You don't turn them in.
Yes.
Now we're back in, now we're back in regular session.
Yes, sir.
Then item number 10 is, do I have a motion for Dr. Wilson to proceed as we discussed in executive session?
I would like to move that we combine the two issues and authorize Dr. Wilson to draft and sign a letter on behalf of EVIT that states we have no objection to either proposal, one from the town of Queen Creek and the other from the city of Mesa for free trade zones.
I'll second that. Covington?
I thought we already had agreed to combine the two.
For discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I'll call for the vote.
Mr. Chairman, a quick question. Will, that will mean there'll be two separate letters, though, that we're approving for Dr. Wilson to sign.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Ms. Boggs?
Johnson?
Aye.
Covington?
Aye.
Doolin? Boggs is an aye. Lane?
Aye.
Fleedham?
Aye.
Hart? Watkins?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
Motion carried. Agenda number 11 is the calendar, and I believe we already have a special item on the calendar, or a proposal for one.
Now's the time to make it.
I couldn't hear you.
Okay, I move that we bring in the two items that we tabled and bring them out into the next meeting, hopefully in a special session next week.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, if you're okay with it, I'd like to work with Kevin and Edith tomorrow and see how long it's going to take us to pull all of this information together. And we may be able to pull it together by Thursday. And if so, then we'll see if we can't roll something Thursday. I'm not going to be here Friday. Not that I have to be here. I'd like to be here, but I'm not going to be here Friday. So I'd like to see if we can maybe get it together and get something on the books for Thursday. And if not, then we'll work with Tammy to schedule something close to the beginning of next week.
That's fine with me.
Does everybody have some availability on Thursday?
I do, but it's going to be after 6 p.m.
I am not available after 7,
But you're available at 6?
as long as I'm Zooming from where I gotta be at 7.
Okay, I can do that. I can do 6.
I can be there.
What date is that again, Thursday?
Zoom.
Thursday, Zoom Thursday.
Yes.
February 25th.
Yeah, all of us can do a Zoom Thursday at 6.
Okay, so we'll put Thursday at 6 as a place marker, and if not, then can you all do a Zoom Monday at 4, 5, 6?
Mr. Chairman, I'm unavailable on Monday. I've got a different meeting, same time.
I'm substituting in mental health, so no.
What about Tuesday?
Tuesday works for me.
Evening, 6, is that what you're saying?
If it's a Zoom meeting, we can do anytime during the day. I know you guys have different schedules, and so, you know, if you could do a 4.
I can do during the day on Tuesday. The only meeting I have a meeting early, but you'll never do it that early, and 4 to 5, so.
You're tied up 4 to 5, or you're free?
4 to 5, I'm tied up, and then early in the morning, but that won't. Otherwise, I'm open. I can make something fit.
2 p.m. work for people?
Nope.
No?
5 o'clock would work.
5?
5 would work for me
PM?
on Tuesday.
So how about we earmark Thursday at 6, is that what we said? And then if
Thursday
not,
at 6.
if not, then it would be Tuesday at 5.
Thursday at 6 is best, no pressure.
Thursday at 6 is best for me.
Gosh, now there's a lot of pressure. 2 of us saying, yeah.
So we're all okay then with aiming for Thursday at 6 for the special?
Assuming that we're able to pull it together, absolutely, absolutely.
Has West,
Lollygagging.
Yeah.
has Westmac made its decisions?
I don't know if they have yet or not. We can
Because
look
I
at their
would-
agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look at their agenda. I'm just curious.
No, I mean, we can't.
Yeah.
That's part of, to
Let's-
Mr. Hart's request, part of just making sure that we're,
I just wonder if they've already voted on their raises.
and, we can, different conversation. And then, as a reminder, we're scheduled March 15th to be out at the Power Road campus for our next regular scheduled board meeting. That's gonna be an interesting one, because that's obviously under construction, and so finding the space to utilize out there is gonna be a challenge, but that's what we're earmarking, to do.
Is the auditorium there not available in the evening?
No, the problem is that we've pushed everything onto that auditorium as we've cleaned out classrooms in order to have space. So we'd have to figure out where to put all of that stuff for an evening.
Should we wait?
It would be.
I mean, I think that's kind of silly to make our faculty and staff move everything out so we can have a meeting.
I agree.
It would be much easier on the faculty and staff to not have to do that.
Look at Mr. Casaros. He's back there begging us to do that.
We'll get him to do it all. That time administrator did
Okay,
something.
so we'll just move that.
To back to here.
Everyone else
We
is
could
okay.
light up the parking lot and sit out in this concrete.
Well, that's what we had talked about. That was one
Or in the
option.
parking structure?
If we're having a tour at 6 PM,
You would not have a tour at 6 PM now if we're not having the meeting out there.
oh, we're not having the meeting out there on March 15th, is that it?
Well, that was the discussion, that in order to have the meeting out there, it's gonna require us doing a lot of logistical with the space because of the construction. So the question was, can we postpone that meeting towards later in the spring when maybe we have some room space that's opened up because we're starting to complete some of the work, and then we would go out there then.
What's the lobby like in the main office area?
Well, we don't have stuff stacked in there, but I think then when you start talking with Carlos about the technology in order to broadcast it, because part of what we do is run these as live streams, and so I don't know the logistics behind that. Also, the lobby, I think, is not necessarily the most conducive space for a meeting, but certainly that's enough space. I mean, that's a big enough space in the main building there.
It would be nice to get out there in April if we're going to do a tour before it gets too hot.
Right.
Yep.
And if you guys would rather, I mean, we
That's
could
what I was gonna say.
schedule.
Why can't we do a
Have
tour?
Tour.
Yeah, you guys we could schedule you a tour to see the space and not have a meeting there if you'd like to do that. In fact, if you wanted to, geez, I wonder on the 15th, just could we have a work session and the work session simply be a tour of the facility? I don't know if we could do that.
Yeah.
So
Have dinner.
If you're touring the construction area, you're gonna have closed-toed shoes, stuff like that. Make sure you have all of those kind of
Helmets.
things. Hard hats, you got hard hats, gloves.
Oh, McCarthy's gonna dial us in.
You have all that stuff. So,
They have
no-
one for
no
me
heels,
already.
No heels.
Really dark.
They have mine saved.
I'm tapping out.
Yeah, they have our, Ms. Boggs and I have our own hard hat.
We do.
And
So-
They already have them
They
for
have
us.
their heads.
Would you like to try to schedule the 15th as just a tour, it's a work session and dinner?
No.
Or do you wanna have the 15th here and then I'll work with individuals to see if we can't get a separate tour? And we
Yes,
can do it that way?
because if I'm gonna tour it, I want to see it
And
daytime.
I might add, it's not gonna be light out there. They're not gonna want us walking around the construction site if they're not there. Their
4 o'clock.
liability is too high for us to be doing that.
4 o'clock would be better, but they're still working.
So we'll have our meeting here on the 15th, and then we'll work with McCarthy and Tammy to arrange for whoever's interested to go on a tour at some point in time in the next 4 weeks, so you all can see the space if you're interested in it.
The McCarthy people were very accommodating to Ms. Boggs and I. Or Ms. Boggs, I was just tag along.
And that makes sense to me. So we will have then the meeting on the 15th back at the main campus.
Yes.
Mr. Watkins.
Back on the 15th here at the main campus.
I have a hard time hearing.
No, it's perfect. Right here, on the 15th, we're back here on the 15th, yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I did hear that. Where's Harry Mitchell when we need him? Item B is adjournment.
So
Do I have
moved.
a motion?
So
Second.
moved.
Second.
No discussion.
No
No
discussion.
discussion?
I went through with the calendar, but that's okay.
call for the vote. Ms. Boggs?
All in favor?
No.
We'd like the
Meeting
record to
adjourned.
fit. Covington said no.
Watch that first step off the podium.
Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
All right.